Formula One, despite people just seeing the efforts of the driver, is a massive collaborative effort. If one piece in the machine goes awry, the whole team runs a risk of becoming an unproductive mess who is stuck in the pack, unable to meet the potential of the sum of their parts. I mean, hey, just look at Alpine. As early as there was a checkered flag, the trio of chassis, tyre, and engine supplier has been a cornerstone of the sport, dictating a team's success and before the 2010s, often dictating a team's survival. Since the homologation of tyres took away the potential for one external collaborator, the last major one outside of the teams is the engine supplier, one that has led to some collaborations that have gone on to define the success at the highest levels of the sport. The Lotus 77 and its Cosworth V8, the McLaren Mp4-4 and its Honda V6, and the later McLaren Mp4/13 with its screaming Mercedes V10. The relationship between the engine supplier and the car builder is integral to the team's success, so someone should probably remind Ford and Red Bull of that, eh? Want to know the potential tensions that could be coming at Red Bull and Ford? You'll hear our opinion on it later, but some of this may leave your ears burning. And stick around, because the latest engine supplier joining the F1 circus could have huge implications on the duo. So the latest collaboration, other than Honda's perennial cha-cha slide in and out of the sport, is the Ford engine partnership with Red Bull, set to take full effect in the 2026 season, which will see a massive shakeup in the engine regulations. Red Bull's previous engine partnership with Honda laid the groundwork for their 3 seasons of dominance, partnering with the latest era regulations to create a powerhouse that has only been challenged on the odd occasion by Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, and George Russell. However, Honda made moves to back out of Formula One in 2021, which led to Red Bull setting up their own engine program with the support of the infrastructure left behind by Honda, who would continue their partnership more passively between 2022 and 2025 before backing out of the sport altogether to focus on electrification. Or so we thought. Betrayal was afoot, as before they had even made it all the way out the door, Honda announced a new deal with Red Bull's closest competitors from the first half of last season, Aston Martin. More than just a shock, this was downright confusing from Honda, but then again, they're not known for sticking around with strong projects all that long. We're not in the early 90s anymore, where a Honda engine stuck around for a successful period. We're in the age where they leave before the era starts, as with Brawn, or they see one championship and shut up shop as with Red Bull. While we're being facetious, this move was perplexing to everyone, perhaps no one more than Christian Horner. When speaking on this, Horner would rue the departure of their collaborator, but would show a strong commitment to their decisions. Would we have made the same decision knowing what Honda's decision is today? Absolutely not. But we've made it, and we're committed to it. The more we've got involved, the more benefits we see to the group long term. However, Horner later sounded like a 2000s teen emo song thanking their ex for breaking their heart and making them stronger, as he would go on to say, "For the long term, the prospects of Red Bull, we've outgrown being a customer. For us to have the power unit on site with the chassis, the synergies that creates, with the engine and chassis engineers sitting next to each other, the advantages are significant. We would not have made that jump if it had not been for Honda's withdrawal. We should be grateful to Honda for giving us that push to create our own engine facility, the jobs it's created, and then the partnership we will have with Ford that's particularly exciting for the future." So Red Bull have been burnt in the past, and it's fair to say they'll want to avoid this in the future. The partnership with Ford is exactly that, a partnership. It's not a reliance on the American auto giant, it's a symbiotic relationship which benefits both parties. Red Bull gets the engineering expertise from a manufacturer with expertise in hybrid technologies and innovation, and Ford gets their badge on the most dominant team currently in the sport. This mutually beneficial relationship with these parties seems to be getting off to a decent start. However, Ford have openly acknowledged that there is still quite some way to go before they're churning out engines that can compete at the top of the sport, where Red Bull is accustomed to competing. When talking to motorsport.com, Ford Performance Director Mark Rushbrook had this to say: "We are working very well with Red Bull. They are our partners, and our focus is on winning. We want that to be possible, and we have looked for the best partner." The article would go on to insinuate that the performance director was aware of the long road ahead before the partnership can be truly competitive, with Rushbrook saying, "We made quite a lot of progress last year, but to be well prepared on the grid for 2026, there is still a lot to be done." So the collaboration has gotten off to a healthy start, which isn't surprising given the relationship between the companies extends beyond Formula One to other ventures such as the WRC. However, while there is optimism for the future, there is also a realistic, sobering message coming out of the Milton Keynes team, with Christian Horner delivering his thoughts on the future of the engine program. There is an equalization mechanism in the rules, but it always has a latency around it, usually a 12-month delay. We've invested in the UK along with our partners, together with Ford, to have the engine facility on campus. Now we've got a factory, state-of-the-art facilities, and close to 500 people working on the 2026 engine. But going from nothing to taking on Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda, Renault, and Audi, we're looking forward to it, but it's a bold move, even though it's one we think will pay off in the long term. So while Red Bull will be brought up to speed no matter what, the rule-enforced leveling of the playing field is slow to enact, and if the partnership does not get off to the right start that the partners are hoping for, then it could be all too late, with the other teams on the grid having a possible 12 months of advantage at the beginning of the new regulations, which could make the difference between competing at the top or being lost in the midfield. Something that could benefit Ford and the F1 world at large massively is them hitting the ground running and sticking it to their rivals. However, there is a potential that the rivalry could be taken up to another level with the introduction of another American powerhouse. With Andretti's bid to F1 involving General Motors hanging in the balance, the F1 world could be on the brink of losing the rivalry that could truly unlock the US market. While the growth in the US has been gaining momentum in recent years, Christian Horner believes that the next big step into breaking the American fanbase could hinge on this rivalry. I'm sure a battle between Ford and General Motors will help with the popularity of F1 in the US. Those brands have huge patriotism in the US and a huge following. You're either a Ford fan or a GM fan, and the competition that could bring could be exciting too. This hit them closer to home approach is definitely a solid theory, however it's unlikely to make the teams budge on their decision to block an 11th entrant into the sport. The risk of already existing teams perhaps losing out in the short term, or those at the bottom of the pile receiving less of a cut and threatening their survival in the sport, is one that none of them seem eager to take. However, with the perpetual insecurity surrounding the Haas project, with the departure of Günther Steiner, and the team's nature of finishing in the lower reaches of the Constructors' Championship, it may not take an 11th spot for us to see this rivalry between the two giants of the American automotive industry come to fruition. The other approach that Horner spoke of is perhaps an indication of Red Bull's intentions moving forward in regards to their drivers. While we don't see their already existing academy hopefuls just disappearing anytime soon, especially the likes of Liam Lawson, the influence of Ford and the American market may just make their F1 hopes less achievable based on their passport. The number of fans is growing, the podiums are growing, but I think what Formula needs to make inroads in the US in the long term is competitive American drivers, and a driver who races for wins. So whether through an expanding calendar, more entrants or more drivers, the American influence on F1 is going to become even more apparent moving forwards. Regardless of how widespread this influence becomes, the hopes of all fans and the paddock at large should be the quality of the entrants, drivers and tracks match up to the bravado of the country of origin.